Welcome back, VC. Thanks for tuning in, as always. New subscribers, welcome. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure and hit the little button down there. But this is my long-promised record fair haul from the last record fair of the year. It'll be a long wait now until the next one. I actually wanted to get this video done a little bit sooner, but I had my top 2 wisdom teeth out last week, and procedure was fine. It kind of felt fine the next day, even went out for a bit of a dig, didn't find anything. But after that, just the recovery kind of hit me and knocked me on my backside, and just had no energy for several days there. So today's kind of the first day I'm feeling up to doing this. Still a little bit sore, but I'm on the mend. So the record fair was actually overall a little bit disappointed this time. I had some great scores at this particular show at their event in the spring. This time around, kind of not as good a selection, but found a few things. And kind of a good proportion of these finds are from my friend who's a record dealer. I actually popped by his place a few days before the show and picked up a few things, and then he had a couple more at the show, so I'm just going to count it all as one. First off, I got Bob James 1. Cover's a little beat up, but the vinyl's perfect. Gatefold. It's on CTI. Just the label there. He's been heavily sampled, I guess. I found his... I always thought he's kind of a cheesy guy, but kind of in the Herbie Mann vein. I picked up... found a mint copy of his Touchdown LP, which I'd seen over and over again before, and decided to pick it up on the basis of some of the players I was seeing on it. It was crazy. Just like, like Herbie Mann, he surrounds himself with all these killer players. So again, he's kind of like a bit of jazz, even a bit of classical, all kind of mixed up in there. And speaking of Herbie Mann, got another one by him. This one's called London Underground. It's from '74 on Atlantic. As kind of most of his '70s albums have kind of a theme, and this is no different. He's taken on kind of the British invasion stuff, the later '60s. So you've got covers of Layla, Mellow Yellow by Donovan, Whiter Shade of Pale, You Never Give Me Your Money by the Beatles, and the usual killer players, Ainsley Dunbar on drums, Mick Taylor on guitar, so pretty good players on there. I got this one for a few bucks, the Soul Clan. I'd heard about this one for a while. Unfortunately, they've cut out a couple of the pictures there. But this is basically a various artists compilation with some big hits on here. You got Arthur Conley, Sweet Soul Music, Benny King, Don't Play That Song, Don Covey, Seesaw, and there's two songs where they all kind of get together and sing together. Very nice. Soul Clan. This is one from my friend, the record dealer, Afropan Steel Band. This is a Canadian release out of Toronto. It's on the Magna Sound label, I think it's called. This is, as it says, it's a steel band. I was kind of hoping it would be a little more funky than it is, but it's basically steel band versions of pop songs of the day. I don't know the exact year on here. I'm assuming it's mid to late '70s. But this group actually began as a community outreach program in Toronto, and they're still active today as a non-profit organization. And they won the trophy for the best steel band, basically, in the carnival competitions in Toronto for 4 years in a row prior to releasing this. It's actually a pretty cool version of Beethoven's Fifth on here, which is kind of a weird classical influence, but it works. And there's a cover of the Chico and the Man theme song, which kind of attracted me to this. I was thinking it was going to be a little bit funky, but there it is. And next up, Charles Wright, Watts 103rd Street Rhythm Band, Express Yourself. This is one I was missing by them, and I think one or two of their early ones. Of course, Express Yourself, their huge hit, sampled by NWA. Charles Wright was actually Eazy-E's uncle, which is probably how they got the rights to the song. Very nice album by them. If you don't know them, soul, funk, cool stuff. Again, on the soul and funk tip, this is one that'd been on my radar for a while, and it is HP Riot, self-titled, from, I think it's early 70s. Gatefold. It's as advertised on radio and TV, so you know it must be good. This was, their name means Hunters Point Riot. They were actually from San Francisco. That was apparently a neighborhood that was hit by race riots in the mid-60s, and they named themselves after that. They're all really young according to the bios on here, like late teens, early 20s. But they toured around kind of the West Coast, Western Canada, and actually recorded this album near me in Vancouver, BC. And it's been reissued on Ubiquity Records recently, I think. Got this one from my buddy, Idris Muhammad, Peace and Rhythm. This is early 70s, 70, 71-ish, I think. That is on Prestige. This is, you'll know him, killer jazz drummer. The first side of this is made up of a Peace and Rhythm suite. One track is called Peace, and one track is called Rhythm. And that's kind of more free, spiritual jazz composition, instrumental. And side 2 is more soul jazz. There's 3 songs. There's a killer instrumental version of Wilson Pickett's Don't Knock My Love, with a very nice breakbeat in there. And first track is called Brother You Know You're Doing Wrong, and the last one is called I'm a Believer, and those both feature vocals by his wife, Sakina, which is, as I said, kind of soul jazz, and those 2 tracks have a bit of a reggae flavor too, which I was sort of surprised to pick up on for being 70, 71. That's pretty early for that to be creeping into the musical consciousness. And again on the reggae tip, it's, I think all but one of these are from next ones are from my buddy, the record dealer. This one is a 12-inch single, I believe it's Canadian, on Zion Love label. This is a very obscure one. Jackson Jones, Walk Away From Love. That's a very nice cover of the David Ruffin song. And the B-side is somewhat more interesting. Same Fighting. That's a bit more of a roots song dealing with violence in various areas. He name checks Toronto and then Vancouver, which as far as my buddy who's pretty knowledgeable is that's probably the first and only reference to Vancouver in a vintage reggae record. And that one is quite rare, actually. It sells for around $120 I saw it priced at on one site. I paid nowhere near that. And I got another single. This one is called Raindrops by Earth and Stone. The labels, or the name is kind of rubbed off there. Earth and Stone were a good roots group, recorded one killer album called Cool Roots, and this is a cover of the D. Clark song Raindrops. This is kind of late 70s, I believe, recorded at Channel 1, which was the studio of the time, where they were cranking out all the hits. And the B-side is called Occupation by General Echo. It's on a completely different musical rhythm track. But General Echo was kind of one of the top DJs of the time. He was very, very influential. He kind of made his name chatting kind of what they call slack lyrics, which tends to be like sexually explicit. But he would do it kind of with a sense of humor and not to be like offensive or anything. But that's what he was known for. But that song is kind of atypical, more social consciousness themed track. I saw one comment from somebody on YouTube that was the last song he recorded before his death. I think in 1980 or so he was in a carload of reggae artists and performers, and they were stopped at a police checkpoint, and for reasons that have never been explained, the police opened fire and killed all of them, which inspired some tribute songs to General Echo. He was very much missed. It's another very obscure Canadian one, Mr. T, Outrageous. kind of cheesy cover art, but it's actually a pretty good record. It's on the top end label. Now, Mr. T was better known, or not better known, but otherwise known as Ted Toppin. He would also record some instrumentals in kind of a jazz funk style, some singles and what have you. Very rare, I would imagine. But he put out this LP, and it's kind of a mix of reggae styles. There's a bit of calypso on there, and some kind of slackness again, which there's a strain of that in Caribbean music. It's nothing that really raises eyebrows. And also some pretty heavy roots music on there. So very good album. And that one is another very expensive one if you buy it online. I paid a fraction of what I've seen that listed for, which is into the triple digits. My buddy actually had like 3 copies of that, including one sealed. And this one is from a different seller. I was at the show. I was actually getting pretty well past my budget, and then I spotted a guy that had a few nice things, most of which I had to pass on, but I did grab this one. B.B. Seaton, Dancing Shoes. This is from '74. It's actually a very early reggae one on the Virgin Caroline imprint. See, very early Virgin label there. Now, a few years after this, Virgin got into the reggae game in a big way, setting up their Frontline imprint and signing all kinds of reggae artists, competing with Island Records and Bob Marley. But this is probably the earliest one I've ever seen. And another unusual thing about it is it's recorded at Channel 1 that I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, which in the late 70s into the early 80s, Channel 1 was the place where all the producers wanted to go to cut their records. They were cranking out hits at an astonishing rate. But the studio was only just built in '73, and this is from '74, so quite an early one, and they hadn't quite developed the sound that they were famous for. B.B. Seaton was a member of the Gay Lads vocal group, recorded for Studio One in the '60s, kind of the rock steady era, before going solo. And that album is very soul influenced. There's a bit of roots on there, but mainly love songs and just very soul and funk influenced. Very nice record. Last couple of finds from my buddy. This one's Prince Jammy Presents Volume 1. It's a Various Artists compilation from 1986. It's on the Live and Love label out of Brooklyn, US pressing. And in 1985, Prince Jammy was a producer. He actually lived in Canada for a while before going back to Jamaica. He, in 1980, he'd been producing stuff kind of from the late 70s to early 80s. In 1985, he unleashed a rhythm track called the Slang Tang, which was built on around a Casio keyboard riff. And the resulting, this caused an absolute sensation in Jamaica, complete game changer as far as how records were produced. And the resulting style of reggae that developed from this was called digital, or digi for short. And he was absolutely at the forefront. He was untouchable in terms of popularity of his records at this time. So much so that he was able to change his name from Prince Jammy to King Jammy, which he hasn't done yet on the cover of this album. They do credit him as King Jammy on the back. But this is a mix of kind of veteran artists that were adapting to the new digital sound and the young up-and-coming artists, which the young guys kind of have the edge on the basis of tracks like Trouble Again by King Kong, which is a classic, and Nitty Gritty's Run Around the World. There's good stuff on there. There's another rare one. I got this from my buddy at the show. He just got this one in. I couldn't even find this on Discogs. I would imagine it's another very expensive one. I think I got a pretty good deal on it. But it is Stranger Cole, No More Fussing and Fighting. This, again, I think is from '86. The back. It's on the Scorcher label. This is a US release. He did live in Canada for a while and released some records here. Ran a record shop, I think, in Toronto for a while. Definitely has some strong links to the Canadian scene. But this is recorded partly in LA and partly in Wacky's studio in Brooklyn too, I think. And Stranger Cole goes all the way back to the very early '60s, ska period. Had a lot of hits singing in duos. People like Gladstone Anderson, the keyboardist, as Stranger and Gladdy. And he's actually playing keyboards on here again. Jackie Matu, very involved in this record as well. Some heavy roots on here, killer stuff. There's a 12-inch single of the title track that is listed on Discogs. Again, well over $100. So I can only guess what the LP would go for. And last up, I got this one from my buddy. This is the Congos, sometimes called Congo Ashanti album. Here just called Congo, and it is a Jamaican pressing on the Congo Ashanti label. I actually have a US pressing of this too. It came out on Columbia. They had recorded an album for Lee Scratch Perry at the Black Ark called Heart of the Congos, which is an absolute phenomenal, once-in-a-lifetime masterpiece album. And then Lee Perry got into a squabble with Island Records, who refused to release it, and basically, effectively scuttled a proper release for this album, which was an absolute apex of his productions at the Black Ark. The Congos understandably choked, had a split with Perry, and came up with this follow-up album. It has no Heart of the Congos, nothing could be after a work of that magnitude, but it's still very good. You got Days Chasing Jays, Hail the World of Jah, killer lineup of players on here, Sly Dunbar, Earl Chinna Smith, Ernest Ranglin on guitar. So, that was my haul. I was very happy to score that one. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll have another one up for you pretty soon. I have kind of a special one in mind. And then I think that might be it for me until the new year. I'm going to be away for a good chunk of December and the holidays. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll keep checking out you guys' videos. And thanks for tuning in. Peace, guys.